everyone. This is Sister Elizabeth. No, it might not sound that way, but that this is who it is. So you might not hear my Boston accent, but you are listening to my sinus headache voice. So we had this debate, and if you're not sure, you are listening to the Company of Charity. You are listening to it. I was getting there because I wanted to make sure everyone knew that this voice is not a scary voice. It's the voice of someone who's not feeling great, but not feeling her worst either. That was earlier in the week. But we had the debate, right? Because
whether for you to come on or whether you were going to just let me fly solo or what. But here we are.
I was going to let her fly solo because I thought she wasn't going to let the old girl get on there sick. But she convinced me that it was better to show that we are human, not that you didn't already know that. But that sometimes, things happen and you're a little under the weather, but the show must go on. And
God's
so
will.
On we
God's
go.
Will be done.
On we go. So we are in Advent.
Yes.
And I find it really unique because I started the first week of Advent somewhat quarantined in my room, not feeling well and certainly not wanting to get anybody else sick. So, kind of staying in my room and being safe. And so I felt a little like that place of Advent quiet,
Yes.
And we are reading together in our house a book called All Creation Waits by a woman named Gail Boss, who I read this book a few years ago, and it's about simply put it, it's about the hibernation practices of different animals.
That is awesome.
It is so awesome. And she just each day for 25 days, it starts December 1st, she talks about the practices of different animals like turtles and bumblebees and snakes and skunks and loons. And she's in Michigan, Grand Rapids, Michigan, and she's reflecting on each of these days of how during the winter, during this time of Advent, that this time in nature, things pass away. The trees are losing their leaves, but that animals are hunkering down, either in burrows in the earth, in the mud. Frogs are going down in the mud. Turtles go down in the mud, and that they go down there to survive the cold, stark winter, and that some of them prepare in very unique ways. I recommend the book highly. All Creation Waits by Gail Boss. Publisher is Paraclete Press. And as I was reading it this last week, I was thinking, here I am in my own hibernation, trying to survive this being separated from the sisters, not being able to be with them. And yet, they're very industrious. They're all young, I'm thinking, oh, I'm just going to be sick. They're not going to want, the sick girl involved in anything. And instead, I was able to Zoom into one of their ICN, their intercommunity novitiate. And then we used the phone for me to call into their instruction. So I got to listen to the whole class.
Oh.
And then they watched a movie the other night. And so we did a watch party. So I could watch the movie with them. So I didn't miss a trick.
Your hibernation was mitigated there.
It was mitigated, yeah. So it was actually quite beautiful because there was that sense of needing to be apart, but not needing to be separated, not missing part of community. So there was all kinds of ways to reflect on this and to think about how this time of Advent is a time of separating. It's a time of kind of going inside. It's not the desert of Lent in the same way.
Yeah.
But it is kind of a hibernating. It's moving inward, a looking inward, taking time to spend with God, reflecting on the coming of Christ, and also, reflecting on the emergence of this and the recognition that Christ will come again. we need to go back out into our world, go back out into the life and live it well so that, when Christ comes again, we're ready and we're showing our fidelity and our willingness to be servants to those who are struggling and who also feel isolated, who feel like they're not always a part of everything. So I'm actually going to stop talking now because I'm starting to lose my voice, and I'd like you to tell us, Sister Liz, tell us about this interview with Sarah Lee.
You guys are really going to like this interview. Sarah, I met when she was in college, and I was working in campus ministry at Mount St. Mary's, and just a great somebody, real solid girl, and has gone on to get married and has a young kiddo at this point. And we thought it'd be kind of cool to interview a new mom about motherhood and about how that connects with Advent. And she's a gem, and she has a lot of little kernels of wisdom. And I think, like, okay, well, what's the connection? Why would the Company of Charity podcast with two sisters invite a young mother on? And I think it's just a great parallel for us about what God is trying to do in our lives and how things grow and how he wants to partner with us in creating a new world. And when we participate in life coming to be, and in all of God's creativity, in all of his wanting to bring something new and transformative, isn't that what we do? That's something that we're trying to do, is change the world one life at a time by the care and love that we show to people. And I'm just really struck by her dedication. Boy, people say that the sisters give up so much in not having families and not having children, and we sleep by and large pretty well at night in that sense. We're not waking up and feeding children. We're not, there's nobody knocking at our door throwing up or anything in the middle of the night. It's in that sense we have it made in that way. But that I think it adds the sense of self-sacrifice that there is in loving another human, and I think we can all learn from that.
Yeah, I love that. I love that idea. And I do think it's absolutely appropriate for us to have a young mother on the podcast. Both St. Louise, our foundress, and our American foundress, St. Elizabeth Ann Seton, both had children. They both understood the trials and tribulations and the love of motherhood. And I think, it probably helped them to understand the needs of the sisters who were young and who were not always sure about what exactly they were doing. And certainly these evangelical counsels and these vows that they were going to take were a mystery to them. But I think both St. Louise and St. Elizabeth Ann would really appreciate Sarah's sharing.
Yes.
And wanting us to understand that motherhood is so precious and so wonderful, and that we should be so supportive of life in all ways and see our own maternal side, so we love those who are often not loved by others, so I think it's great. I'm really looking forward to hearing from you all about what you think about this episode, because I think for Advent and for our charism of just reaching out to people who are vulnerable, there's a lot. So
we hope you enjoy the episode, and as always, we'd love to hear your comments. You can reach us at companyofcharity@gmail.com. And we are at Company of Charity Podcast on Instagram. So feel free to leave some comments and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. And we hope you have a great Advent. In a couple weeks, we'll be talking about the Christmas novena, which we do 9 days before Christmas. So stay tuned for that next time. But until then, enjoy this interview with Sarah Lee. You guys are going to love it. Well, welcome everybody. I am here with a very old friend. We realize it's been about 10 years since we were physically in the same location, but Sarah Lee, great. So that great. Yeah, you could come and be on the podcast.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for taking the time.
Of course. I'm so excited you asked me.
So maybe just let's give a cliff notes of who you are, where you're from, like what's your faith background, and then we'll dive into we're going into Advent, so to talk a little bit about like motherhood and your prayer life and relationship with Mary and all that good stuff we'll get to.
Yeah, sounds good. So as sister mentioned, my name is Sarah Lee. That wasn't my maiden name. My married name is Sarah Lee. So I get lots of comments about, oh, you bake pies and breads and all these things. So my husband and I live in Newport right now, Rhode Island. He's in the Navy. So we're here for a year, then we're on to Japan. We came from San Diego. So lots of moving around. But I grew up mostly in Virginia. My dad was also military Army. So we moved when I was younger. So I kind of knew the military life that I was jumping on into. So currently in Newport, we just had a little one. Noah James Lee was born at the end of June. So I'm learning new mom life and just navigating all of the joys and struggles and excitement and exhaustion that comes with it. I also teach kindergarten. I taught pre-K for about 7 years, and I've taught kindergarten the past few years with an online Catholic school. I danced, I choreographed and directed with a theater company for years. So I kind of enjoy a lot of different things in life.
It's good. You're well-rounded, right?
Yeah.
And we can't fail to mention that where you and I met way back 10 years ago, well, I guess it may have been 12 years ago, at Mount St. Mary's University.
Yeah. So I went to the Mount for my undergrad and then University of Virginia for my graduate, all in education. And at the Mount is really where my faith took off. I was a cradle Catholic, so baptized when I was a baby, went to Catholic school the whole way, kindergarten all the way through college. And I was involved with youth groups and choirs and things like that. But I think my faith life really took wings, I guess you could say, at the Mount. There were so many faith enriching experiences there that I was able to kind of dive into, and really good faith filled friendships that kind of helped me along that road, and retreats that I attended. And for one, I led a retreat when I was in college, a Kairos retreat, and that was just a time that really, really helped me dig deep into my personal relationship with Jesus. So yeah, and it's just kind of grown from there. And each season is different, I've learned and discovered. So it's been interesting to just see how it changes and grows, and as does life.
Yeah. What was the experience like for you going from the Mount, which was like so concentrated, Catholic, your friends can, be supportive of your faith, and then graduating and maybe you're this young adult where there's not as much, I guess, support, you could say.
Yeah, it was a different experience, I guess. I taught at a Catholic school, so thankfully I did still have some of that Catholic community, and some good Catholic teacher friends that were there. But it was definitely different in that I wasn't surrounded by those friends all the time, living, breathing, eating with them. But I found ways to keep connected with some of those good friends from the Mount, and also kind of jump into different faith activities with my parish and adoration at a local church. And I kept up with going to daily mass, which really, I think, helped to bridge that gap of having so much close Catholic community to all of a sudden, hey, I'm out in the big adult world. What am I doing? So I think that helped to just kind of continue that faith growth there.
So if we're gonna move into talking about Advent, but I want to hear from you about your discernment of marriage and motherhood. Was that an assumption for you? I always thought I was going to be a mom. If you're in teaching, you're always around kids anyway, right? Being responsible for kids versus having one of your own that you have to be around all the time. That's a whole different ball
You don't get
game.
to send them home.
Exactly. So was that something for you? Oh, you started to visualize it then once you met your husband, or how did that work for you?
Yeah. So I think I always felt a calling in my heart that I wanted to get married, and that I wanted to be a mom. Especially, I mean, working with kids kind of solidified that. That I just was it felt like it was the right vocation for me, working with children and being in that environment. So I felt like I I loved those kids so much. I mean, I always called them my kids, the students that I taught. And it was funny because I taught pre-K and kindergarten, and many times I would get called mom by the students. And normally without they wouldn't even think of it. They would just keep going, "Hey mom." I'm like, "Hey, what you doing? What's going on?" Kind of roll on with it. And some kids would call them out like, "That's not mom, that's Miss Conrad or Mrs. Lee." And I was like, "No, it's okay." um, but
That's
I think
adorable.
yeah, it was quite cute. Yeah, it was very sweet. But I think in a way too, being a teacher for such young children helped to prepare me for motherhood, because it gave me lots of experience with not this baby stage, but with the I guess the older toddler stage into school age children stage, learning how to work with children, how to redirect children, how to the emotional, the physical, there's so many components. I mean, relationships for kids, adults, babies, anyone has a lot to go on to into it. So I
And you
think
can't just
teaching
be
the little
like,
people.
here's a piece of paper, go study or go read
Yeah.
this thing. I mean, with kindergarten, that's a whole, it's like being on stage, right?
Yes,
You're
exactly.
on.
And I really think that my theater, and my husband says this too, that my theater background really helps in the teaching sphere of these little people, because it's like a song and dance. Okay, we're going to sing this song, we're going to do this dance, let's get up in jumping jacks, run around the room, here, let's do a story. It's just constant movement, which it requires, like you said, being on 20 all the time. Yeah.
What would you say how did your relationship with God or your relationship with Mary change, from getting married to being pregnant, people talk about it as a transformative experience of, maybe Mary seemed like just a nice lady, in a painting versus somebody who was real and really struggled and had to face these challenges of new motherhood under the circumstances. So maybe talk a little bit about what that was like for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I I resonate a lot with that. Like you said, oh yeah, Mary's this nice lady and these paintings and statues and these things, because that's kind of uh, that was where my relationship with her was before motherhood, I think. I mean, I said the prayers, did my rosary, all these things. I knew about Mary, but I think becoming a mom really it deepened that knowledge. I felt more experiences that I knew that she had experienced, just in motherhood. The nice Instagram photo ones of, oh, bringing the baby home and here's his little milestones, but also the 2 a.m. nursing sessions, he's screaming and crying because he's teething and there's nothing that soothes him except for mom walking around in circles hours and hours on end, sort of thing. So I think especially, I think just thinking about Mary in that light of motherhood, not just okay, here's a picture of the Holy Family. I feel like that's the image that we see the most of Mary, either the Holy Family. Well, there's a number of images, but her and the Holy Family. But I think envisioning her in real mom life, with the baby, changing the diaper, putting on the outfit, nursing the baby, helping him crawl, all the little details and intricacies of mom life. That was definitely something that I felt helped me connect more with her, and just feel like I had a deeper
understanding. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, the waiting aspect, I think, is so interesting, the baby's growing inside of you and they have this whole track, your baby is the size of a lemon or what have you. What would that have been like for Mary to to
Oh,
feel the
yeah,
baby move inside of her and things like that.
exactly. Yeah, all those little experiences that you don't that we don't think of as, oh, well, Mary didn't experience that. She, she was Mary, like she had Jesus and it was all perfect, but like all of these little things, she experienced those too. And especially during the season of Advent, waiting for Jesus's birth, awaiting anticipation. Last year during Advent, when I was pregnant, I definitely felt that like a much stronger connection to her because I was like, oh, cool, I'm waiting for my baby too. I'm walking this road with Mary. Maybe I'm not walking to, walking to Bethlehem, but I'm still walking on this path of, walking into motherhood. And I think another piece in particular for me, that I felt a connection with her was just learning how to trust God more, like her fiat, and saying, yes, this angel came down and told her, hey, you're going to have Jesus. This is a huge, big thing. And her response was, yes, I am the handmaid of the Lord. May it be done unto me according to his will. Not the same situation for me. An angel didn't drop down from heaven and tell me. But I think just learning to trust God in that pregnancy. Before we had Noah, we did lose our first baby, which was a very emotionally, there were a lot of emotions spiritually. It was a difficult, painful time. But I think I was able to build even more of a connection with Mary in that time. In that I felt like her example of trusting God was all I could do. Like at a time when I felt like, how could this have happened? Just all of those emotions of like, why me? Why did this happen? How can I move forward? It was just like, okay, well, here's Mary's example of, you don't know what's going to happen, but just trusting in God's will. And a friend of mine had said to me, just think of Mary up in heaven holding your little saint, which of course made me cry. And it still does every time I think of it.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think that just helped me, gave me a little peace, knowing that our little one is up there with her and one day we'll meet her. But also just her example of, okay, trusting in God's will, no matter what happens. Because pregnancy after loss is very anxiety inducing, and just, the worry of, okay, is it like, are we going to make it to this milestone? Are we going to make it to this one? So I think, just learning to walk that road with her. And he knew what he's doing because he always knows what he's doing. So just trusting that this was the moment.
I think, I thank you for sharing that, because sometimes people are hesitant to talk about, pregnancy loss, miscarriage, stillborns, like it's something that's actually way more common than most people understand. So many times people just don't even share about it.
Right. And that was definitely my experience when it happened. It's 1 in 4, it's 25% of pregnancies this happens in. And unfortunately, but fortunately in a way, I do have a number of friends who have also experienced it. So that became a bonding experience with them, just having people who knew what it felt like. And also knowing that like it happens like 1 in 4 times. It's nothing that I did per se. Just as some people say, okay, God needed that little one in heaven more than we did on earth.
Yeah. We never know. I really was struck by, they had these paintings and pictures of families, and they show the whole family, and then they show like the extra kiddo who's not physically present. And I just think that it's so touching, because you want to honor that life. And it, he or she was living there for a time.
Right.
And so the fact that we can acknowledge it and share, and I think that's an opportunity to invite others to know that it's okay.
Yeah, exactly.
So what happens in your heart and your soul, like once this baby is born, I think sometimes people say like, well, a mom is a mom when she gets pregnant, the dad becomes a dad when the child is born or whatever. I don't know.
Uh-huh.
For me, I wouldn't know. I'm a sister.
Right.
You don't have the physical children. I got some
Uh-huh.
spiritual children, but
Yeah,
like
yeah.
it, talk a little bit about, I mean, was there a moment for you where you were like, holy Moses, my heart just grew 3 sizes or whatever? I just think of the Grinch where the heart just boom, like
Right.
breaks out.
Yeah, yeah.
What was your
I think
experience?
so. Well, I think some people say that like the instant the baby is on your chest, then it's all like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. The birth experience was a little traumatic in my case. A lot of it's painful. There
It's
was a
no
lot going
joke,
on.
they say.
No, no, it really isn't. So I think at that point it was just like the exhaustion of, oh my gosh, I did it. But then like a little bit later, it was like, wow, like what a miracle. Like we created this tiny human. I think for me, the initial like wow factor was really like this, I mean, I know that I birthed this child. I felt that, like I see the kid, like it's just kind of like the realization of, wow, like this is amazing. Like it's a like the miracle of life. It's just, yeah,
Mm.
it's very amazing.
And then the crushing weight of responsibility, when does that come in?
Oh my gosh. As soon as they're like, so you only have 24 hours at the hospital left, and then you'll be sent off home. And you're like, oh my gosh, really? Are you sure? So when in the birthing class, they had told us about like, the period of time that you would be allowed to stay in the hospital. So they had said it was basically 2 days after giving birth. And so my husband went, because we arrived the night before his due date. And my husband was watching the clock, like, okay, buddy, hold on, just make it till past midnight. So because their deal was like, okay, if you give birth that first night, that counts as your first night in the hospital. So basically you get one more day instead of 2. And he was like, hold on, kid, just hang in there for a little bit more. Right. We need our time in the hospital with all these supports. And he did. He waited until his due date. He was very on time.
Oh, well, after, they say the 4th or 5th, they just start walking out. So
Right. Yeah. 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 That'll be a lot easier. I'm looking forward to that. When it's like, oh, okay, I'm in labor. Oh, really? There's the baby.
So talk about your husband in all this. Like, what was his role and how did he help you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So thankfully, he was able to be home for where we're at right now. He's attending a school at the Naval War College. So since Noah was born over the summer, he was able to be home with me, which was amazing. I mean, in and of itself, having him here, but also the fact that we're military. And I've heard of many friends who their husbands are deployed, and it's, you know, entering in that new parenthood on your own. So having him here, he was a great support. I mean, he did the diapers, he got me food. Like it showed me like how much of a servant's heart he has. Because he was serving me and Noah, and we lived downstairs in our living room. The kitchen was right next door. He would, he made all of the food. He still makes dinner for us every night.
Love it.
Yeah, so like he made the food, he brought me food, he did the diapers, he picked up the baby, he gave me a break sometimes. So just, yeah, growing, it's been very neat to see how, just seeing the ways that we're both growing, and seeing, the way that he's serving both me and Noah and being a dad to Noah. Just seeing that side of him has been really, really special and neat to experience.
And what a great, I mean, talk about the Holy Family, right?
Yeah.
Like you guys have yourself a little Holy Family, and we have these reflections during Advent and Christmas about how everything seems to be so picturesque and perfect, and how the reality of things, it's so different in the sense of what is real love about. You're learning in this situation, like the self-sacrifice involved in bringing this human into the world.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, there's been a lot of, I think, sacrifice in so many different ways. I mean, there's a sacrifice of time and like my literal body, like growing this child, birthing this child, like feeding this child. Just there's a lot of challenges, but also joys that come with it. I think during those first like 3 or 4 weeks, the weeks where you're like, oh my goodness, how will we survive? Like, I know other people have done this because like humanity has continued as a race, but there's no way. Like, come on, that's not going to happen.
That's where it
Yeah,
takes a village, right? You have to have a village.
exactly. Oh yeah, yeah. But during those times, especially, I feel like once I got over the how are we going to make this happen, it was definitely a very experience of just like learning how much sacrifice there is in parenthood, motherhood, fatherhood. I definitely felt a stronger understanding. I mean, not comparing the crucifixion to parenthood in any stretch, because it is, totally different
But
in
you have your
like
little
many ways.
crucifixions,
Right, exactly.
dying to
Yeah.
self.
Yeah, being up all night, like feeding him, not getting the sleep deprivation, learning how to care for a little human. And yeah.
Well, that's awesome. And
Mhm.
so, as we start to wrap up, thinking about what would you have to offer people, um, in the sense of how to pray through Advent, how to prepare, and maybe it's not like we're going to have a baby, but maybe
Mhm.
God is inviting us to a new level of relationship, or to really think about how to give ourselves in a sacrificial way, to others. What would you suggest to people as we go into this season?
Yeah. So I think one thing is just to slow down. There's so much excitement and movement and go, go, go. It's Advent. Now there's lights and there's decorations. And oh my goodness, I have so many things to do and preparing. I think just slowing down to experience, um, to dive more deeply into what the season really means. I know that's kind of cliche. So many people
Slow
say that,
down.
oh,
What?
this, what really is the Advent season? But as I tell my students, I always say, okay, we're preparing our hearts and our homes. So like, we're setting up our Christmas tree, getting your cards ready, getting gifts to like give to others, but also preparing your hearts. That Jesus is coming. It's his big birthday. Um, so I think taking it slower as we go into the season of Advent, and then kind of this ties into motherhood, but can relate to literally any state in life too. But just when you have challenges, finding the joy in those challenges, which kind of sounds
Mm,
counterintuitive. I don't know if that's the word I'm looking for. But for example, like the latest challenge with this little fella is that he's teething and wants to eat all night long and is awake. The stretches of sleep are getting smaller, so that's definitely a challenge. And each time
mm,
I wake up, I'm like, oh, I gotta like get my bearings, get up, feed him. But then kind of turning that challenge into like a reflection on, where can I find the joy in this? Like, I can find the joy in that, like, I'm his mom. I'm able to feed him. I'm able to breastfeed him. I have a husband who's here to help out with him. I have, just finding, God bless me with this child, this beautiful little child of God. So
mm.
just finding the joys in the challenges can help make them more of a sacrifice.
Yeah,
Um,
there's something to it, right? It's sometimes when suffering comes our way, we just like, I'm gonna grin and bear it, or I'm just gonna like push through. And it's more
uh-huh.
about like getting to the other side of the challenge, or just like gritting and bearing it until it's over. And I don't know that that's really the way that what God has in mind for us in our sufferings.
Yeah, I think in the moment, of course, sufferings are suffering and painful and emotionally distressing and all these things, but there's always purpose to the suffering. Um, there's always something that we grow in. I mean, learn from, we learn from every experience in life, but I think from sufferings and trials that we go through, there's something that we can gain, and we can grow, which we go throughout our whole life. If we stayed the same
Mhm.
little tiny human that we were when we were a little kid, we wouldn't experience all of these fun, cool things as adults.
Yes.
So yeah, I think, yeah, definitely changing the lens that we look at those challenges is a thing that I
100%.
think is just a good practice for Advent, just like day by day, instead of like, oh my gosh, I have to rush to get to Christmas. Nope, let's do day number 1. Now let's do day number 2.
Mm-hmm.
And I think another thing that I know has helped me in the Advent season and in the Lent season too is just finding a I guess a character is maybe the wrong word for it, but like a faith person. What am I?
Mm-hmm.
Words. Mary, Joseph, Jesus, one of the saints to walk the path with. So like, for instance, last Advent, I felt like I was walking the path with Mary, both anticipating the birth of a baby. That's not everyone's situation, right? Not everyone's pregnant during Advent. So I think just finding someone to walk during Advent with and think like, okay, like what would Joseph have been experiencing at this time? What would Mary have been experiencing? Or Elizabeth, her cousin? Or there's so many different people that we can draw closer into their experiences with. And I think it'll help us to like put the focus back on what really is the importance of Advent and the Christmas season.
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for your wisdom and for your stories. It's great to reconnect, and we'll definitely be, praying for you as you
thank you.
head to Japan in just a few months. That's crazy.
Oh yeah, that'll be a big adventure around the world.
Well, the people here in the United States will miss you terribly, and I'm sure you'll impact many people over there as well. But God bless you, and thanks for taking the time.
Oh, you too. God bless you. I always have fun memories of singing with you at mass and choir. You played guitar, I was cantor.
Those were the days.
They were. It was wonderful.
Awesome. Thanks
for having me, Sister Liz.